Reynolds just wiped 3 brand partnerships off his portfolio in a single week. No statement, no farewell post, no explanation. Just deleted. Blake Lively has walked out of her attorney's building 4 times this month. Not a film set, not a charity gala. Par. A lawyer office. 4 separate visits. Maximum Effort, the production vehicle they built together, has produced nothing publicly in 8 months. A company that once launched campaigns every quarter has gone completely dark. This is not a news cycle cooling down. What we are witnessing, right now, in slow motion, is the calculated dismantling of one of Hollywood's most elaborately constructed dynasties. I will show you exactly how the foundation cracked and why the warning signs were always there for anyone paying attention. To grasp the magnitude of what's collapsing, you first need to appreciate what was actually built. These two were never simply a famous couple. They operated as a coordinated commercial organism, a dual-brand engine dressed up as a marriage. Ryan moved like a venture strategist who moonlighted in blockbusters. Aviation Gin, offloaded to Diageo for north of $600 million. Mint Mobile, acquired by T-Mobile for $1.35 billion. Maximum Effort churned out culturally viral work that made traditional ad agencies look prehistoric. He wasn't chasing roles, he was accumulating assets. Blake carved her own territory simultaneously. Betty Buzz positioned her in the beverage space. Blake Brown Beauty gave her a foothold in the hair care aisle. Her fashion presence wasn't passive either. It was a curated editorial narrative calibrated to project aspiration without arrogance. The Tuscany photos, the effortless glamour that somehow felt attainable. Jointly, they projected invincibility, sharp wit that scanned as genuine, domestic warmth that felt unforced, a seemingly endless stream of deals that made them look less like celebrities and more like a private equity firm with really good cheekbones. Every machine has a stress point, though, and stress points don't announce themselves. They wait. Let's be direct about something the mainstream coverage keeps tiptoeing around. Justin Baldoni's lawsuit didn't manufacture a crisis. It detonated one that was already pressurized. When the details emerged, the orchestrated smear operation, the behind-the-scenes maneuvering throughout the "It Ends With Us" promotional run, the internet didn't respond with outrage on Blake's behalf. Nobody rallied. Nobody flooded comment sections with defense posts. The predominant reaction was something far more damaging: recognition. That distinction is critical. Beloved figures get defended when scandals hit. Adored celebrities generate armies of supporters who shout down every accusation. That did not materialize here. Instead, millions of viewers started cross-referencing old footage. The interviews that felt slightly too managed, the candid moments that somehow always had a camera at the perfect angle, the way any friction around Blake historically dissolved into deflection and reframing. Nobody discovered something shocking. They found confirmation for something they'd always sensed but couldn't articulate. That is structurally unfixable. No magazine cover repairs damaged instinct. No carefully worded statement reconstructs gut-level trust once it evaporates. Ryan clocked this before the dust settled. His response was immediate and surgical. Fewer coordinated appearances, fewer joint content moments, a visible withdrawal from anything that framed them as a unified front. He didn't defend loudly. He retreated strategically. And strategic retreat from someone who spent years engineering closeness as a commercial tool says everything about his read on what's ahead. Numbers don't perform for cameras. That's why they're worth studying. Thriving dynasties move forward. Fresh ventures get announced. Partnerships expand. There is a constant gravitational pull toward the next thing. What healthy momentum does not look like is a string of quiet exits with nothing replacing them. Ryan already liquidated his highest value holdings before any of this became public. Aviation Gin, gone. Mint Mobile, gone. Both sold at peak valuations. That is either extraordinary timing or extraordinary foresight. Possibly both. What it represents, financially, is maximum liquidity secured before conditions become complicated. Blake's side of the ledger tells a different story. Betty Buzz's social channels, which once maintained a consistent weekly posting rhythm, have essentially flatlined. The hair care line has generated no meaningful press activity in months. Any savvy brand operator knows you weaponize every wave of visibility, controversy included, to drive consumer awareness. She is sitting on visibility and converting none of it into commercial traction. That behavioral shift means one of three things. The ventures are being quietly unwound, they're being packaged for a potential exit, or legal constraints are freezing standard operations. Evaluate each possibility independently. Not one of them suggests stability. Study Ryan Reynolds' recent public behavior carefully because what he's executing is textbook separation methodology. He has remained active, accessible, funny in interviews, physically present at events. But examine the actual substance of what he discusses. Film projects, fatherhood in the broadest possible strokes, entrepreneurial philosophy, comfortable, evergreen, individually branded content. His wife's name has not crossed his lips voluntarily in any significant interview for months. The knowing spousal references that once punctuated his every appearance have vanished. No affectionate callbacks, no coordinated humor built around their dynamic. None of the casual co-mentioning that functions as a celebrity couple's public signal for everything between us is solid. Barab and Metz, omissions at this scale are never accidental. Communications teams at this level don't forget things, they decide things. When a figure who spent the better part of a decade making his relationship central to his personal mythology abruptly excises it from his narrative, that is an architectural decision, not an oversight. He is actively reconstructing a freestanding identity, ensuring that his name, in isolation, generates associations untethered from her current situation. The protecting her privacy argument collapses immediately under scrutiny. This is the same individual who turned marital humor into a marketing instrument worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Invoking privacy selectively, only now, only here, isn't shielding anyone. It is maneuvering. This is what tabloid channels consistently miss because it requires familiarity with how the industry functions beneath the surface. The professional community has already shifted its position on both of them, not through press releases or public statements, through the quieter, more lethal mechanism of recalibrated risk tolerance. The Baldoni lawsuit injected something irreversible into attachment conversations across every major studio and streamer. When producers and directors now encounter Blake's name in early development discussions, a calculation occurs that simply didn't exist before, an informal tally of complexity versus return, friction versus value. At the level these two operate, nobody fights through manageable discomfort when the next page of the casting list offers a cleaner path. Ryan's exposure differs, but isn't absent. His commercial value was always rooted in perceived trustworthiness as a partner. The guy brands wanted because collaborating with him felt frictionless and reliable. That reputation develops slowly and erodes faster than anyone expects when coordinated manipulation allegations attach to your household name, regardless of personal culpability. Neither of their names generates the same automatic green light they did before. In an industry built on relationships and instinct, a yellow light at the wrong moment is functionally indistinguishable from a red one. Everyone anticipates a spectacle, a tearful statement, a headline-grabbing confrontation, something that signals, unmistakably, that something enormous has ended. That is not what this looks like from the inside. At this altitude, disintegration arrives as paperwork, as a sponsorship agreement that lapses without renegotiation, as a development project that simply stops generating updates, as two people who once appeared jointly at every major event, somehow never quite managing to coordinate schedules anymore, pull up their last confirmed joint public appearance. The date is further back than your instincts suggest. No dramatic ending, no climactic scene, just withdrawal, incremental, administrative, irreversible. The slow departure of every person who attached themselves to the upside and quietly identified an exit once the trajectory changed. The most definitive evidence isn't what's happening, it's what isn't. A dynasty under genuine threat deploys everything: the vulnerability interview, the philanthropic pivot, the carefully orchestrated family content that humanizes and resets. Fragments of that strategy were attempted here. They generated no traction. Not because the execution was poor, but because the audience had already finalized its verdict, not from hostility, but from the specific exhaustion of watching a performance that no longer syncs with what they instinctively understand to be true. Here is the fundamental reality about structures built entirely on cultivated perception. Their durability is proportional to the distance between the manufactured version and the authentic one. Once viewers stop seeing the curated image and start seeing the machinery generating it, once the gap between the two becomes the story, nothing closes that distance again. The craft becomes a liability. What Blake and Ryan assembled was genuinely formidable. The instincts were sharp, the timing was impeccable. The commercial results were objectively extraordinary. But the architecture rested on a constructed self, a version of two people that required constant, sophisticated maintenance to sustain. And allegedly, sustaining it involved tactics that crossed into territory now generating active legal proceedings. Those tactics have stopped working. The mechanisms are jammed. Every lever that once reliably produced goodwill now produces skepticism. This isn't a moral verdict on either of them as human beings. It's an observation about what occurs when cultural velocity outpaces the infrastructure of a carefully managed mythology. The audience became too fast, too networked, too fluent in the language of PR strategy to keep being persuaded by it. The viewers adapted. The apparatus did not, which is precisely why, without ceremony, without a concluding statement, without anything resembling a definitive ending, it's already over. Do you think there's any road back for them, or is this genuinely finished? Tell me below.